I'm Katherine Johnson, 55 years old. I'm a divorced wedding planner who ended my marriage 10 years ago. Before the divorce, my husband and daughter consistently ignored me for 5 years. Once my daughter graduated from college and became independent, I decided to leave my husband. Even though I felt ignored, I stayed to raise my daughter until she finished college. After the divorce, I left the house with my son. It's been 10 years since the divorce, and at that time, my son had just started high school. Reflecting on those days still brings a sharp pain to my heart, but by living each day fully, the pain has gradually faded. Recently, a name I hadn't seen in a decade popped up on my phone. "Hello, you still sound as dreary as ever," a voice filled with disdain responded. It was my ex-husband. After all this time, I wondered why he wanted to talk. I kept my response minimal, saying, "I'm at work right now." "Wow, you're working? Lucky someone actually hired you. My ex-husband always looked down on me." Perhaps it was his need to feel superior. In reality, he never contributed financially, dealing with gambling and debts while I worked to support us. Remembering this makes my blood boil. Though I wanted to hang up immediately, the fact that he reached out after 10 years suggested there might be something important. Suppressing my emotions, I continued the conversation. "What do you want?" I didn't want to raise my voice while working. Remaining calm and concise, he then delved into his own needs. "Mur is getting married. It'll look bad without a mother. Come back just for that." This was so typical of my ex-husband, solely concerned about appearances. Even after a decade, he still prioritized such superficial things, trying to involve his ex-wife. Despite everything, I, now 32, still consider Mur my daughter. I've never stopped caring about her, even during the 7 years of being ignored. However, considering our history, I couldn't simply agree to his request on his terms. I couldn't help but hesitate to meet the owner of this voice I hadn't heard in a while. "Does she agree to this?" he asked, as if it's the most natural thing. What kind of person demands this as if it doesn't matter? What agree to what? Does she agree to have her ignored and divorced ex-wife attend their wedding? Does this man really not understand? His response clarified everything. "Can't you just listen to me? A divorced couple attending their daughter's wedding sounds quite good, doesn't it?" He was still fixated on appearances. To him, a former couple attending an event together was probably nothing out of the ordinary. As I calmly considered this, he dealt another blow. "You must be working as a regular employee by now, right? Well, during our marriage, I supported you financially. It's only fair you contribute to Mur's wedding expenses." What I recalled was working part-time and then as a full-time employee. I have achieved an even higher position now. Back then, it wasn't for a comfortable life. It was the result of me working to earn a living that I couldn't afford. And of course, I have no recollection of having to pay for it. I don't mean to complain now, but I can't even express how much his memories are being altered for his convenience. Discuss the money directly with me. I'm busy too. It all came down to public image and money for him. Even now, these conversations bring back painful memories. Shortly after we got married, I found out about my ex-husband's love for gambling. He earned a salary, but it never made its way home. Debts kept piling up without my knowledge. While I worked hard to support our family and raise our kids, he accused me, "All you care about is money. You don't care about me." He started coming home speaking of perfume, not bothering to hide or make excuses for his affairs. It seemed like cheating was just inevitable for him. It's all in the past now, not a pleasant memory, but I try to move on. Attempting to change the subject, I take a deep breath and ask him over the phone, "What does Murray say?" "What? You're still being ignored by Murray, continually neglected by your own daughter. That's pathetic," he mocks, laughing as if he finds pleasure in this. Talking to this man wouldn't lead to anything productive. "I'll talk to her directly," I assert. "You should. I hope Mur talks to you normally." He replies with a snicker and abruptly ends the call. I let out a deep sigh and turn my phone back on. On the day, I arrive early at the waiting room and sit down alone. Suddenly, the door opens, and I hear footsteps. I'd recognize them even after 10 years. They stop right in front of me. Why are you sitting here? What? There's no place for a mother who abandoned her child. His unnecessarily loud voice echoes in the small room. What do you mean? You heard it from Murray, didn't you? What? There's no seat for a mother who hasn't properly talked to her daughter for 17 years. You're not wanted here. His words spit out with a triumphant laugh are predictable. I can imagine his expression without even looking. He must be picturing a mother rejected by her daughter after hinting at a joint appearance by the divorced couple over a phone call after 10 years. Such a typical move of his. Unaware that I'm thinking this, he continues his verbal attack. But inside, I can't stop laughing. Suppressing my emotions, I respond solemnly. I was just so curious. What? You're curious about your daughter's wedding after being ignored for 7 years and out of touch for 10, he says, laughing. Man, are you some kind of masochist? I paid some money, so let me have a peek. No way, Mary doesn't care about you at all. You're just a wallet. He laughs uncontrollably, holding his stomach amidst his laughter. After a while, there's a soft knock. My ex-husband responds gruffly, and 2 figures slide into the room. Mur and my son Ethan. My ex-husband, looking puzzled, addresses them. Mary, why are you dressed like that? Mary, who should have been dressed as a bride, is wearing a regular dress. Ethan, too, is casually dressed in a jacket and pants. And there I am in my plain pantsuit, looking baffled. My ex-husband asks Mur with a blank expression the same question again. Mur casually replies, What are you talking about? My wedding's already over. What? The wedding's over? Yes. What do you mean it's over? I don't understand. It's over means it's over, just like that, right, Mom? Mur says, smiling at me. Ethan, and I return her smile. My ex-husband looks at us as if he can't believe what he's seeing. Hey, what do you mean it's over? Do you know something about this? He demands, turning to me. It's just as Mur said, I reply. Like I said before, the 3 of us and the other family had the ceremony in Hawaii without you. Mur calmly explains the main points to her father, his voice rising an octave in his flustered state. What, Hawaii? Mom helped us out. You didn't contribute a penny. Why would we want someone like you at the wedding? Of course, we wanted Mom there, Mur added, stunning her father. My ex-husband, desperate, asked, Then what's this today? Why are we all gathered in the wedding venue's waiting room? Mur's eyes flickered as she looked at her father, then coldly said, It's to cut ties with you. My ex-husband trembled slightly as he spoke. What do you mean by cutting ties with me? You ignored her, with me, for 7 years, and then she left us. Clearly not expecting such treatment from his daughter, whom he thought was on his side. He was visibly shocked, but Mur was relentless. What? You didn't just ignore Mom. You ignored me and Ethan too. What? I wasn't ignoring Mom with you. I find it disgusting to be associated with a man who ignored his family, had an affair, and had a child out of wedlock. My ex-husband gasped at Mur's words. He stared at her, his expression blank in the dead silence. Mur continued, The reason I didn't talk to Mom was to keep an eye on you. What? You neglected your family for gambling and debts, had an affair, even had a love child. And you hit Mom behind our backs, didn't you? What? You thought we didn't notice? Any middle schooler would understand that. And when Ethan and I were nice to Mom, you hit her even more, didn't you? My ex-husband glared at me. I didn't do anything. It was you who didn't bother to hide your actions even in front of the kids. He must have believed I turned my children against him, but I never did. I was cautious, as any action on my part could have negatively impacted the children. I refrained from confiding in anyone about his actions to prevent unintended consequences. Looking back, perhaps I should have discreetly sought help. But at that time, I was overwhelmed. I thought enduring it would be sufficient. However, my children didn't accept that. Each, in their own way, wanted to help and became involved. I knew you were abusing Mom since I was in elementary school. What? Since then? You might have thought we were asleep, but your loud yelling woke us up, whether we liked it or not. But as an elementary or middle schooler, there was nothing I could do. So I decided, once I was in high school, I'd save Mom. I ignored Mom to keep an eye on you. I thought if you had an ally, you wouldn't dare hit Mom. So to protect Mom, I decided not to talk to her. She knows that. What she knows. It was a strategy we all came up with. He hadn't expected us to be in cahoots. His face turned pale and twisted. I wonder what my children are thinking. Ignoring that, Mur continued. I pretended to be on Dad's side to keep him in a good mood for safety. In exchange, I made sure Ethan was always with Mom in case you tried to hit her. Ethan, being a boy, could protect her. What? Ethan was just an elementary or middle schooler back then. He couldn't have stopped me. My ex-husband's words made me chuckle. What are you laughing at? Nothing, just contempt, disgust. Thinking about how you're always bluffing. See, you always get worked up so easily. You were always afraid of Ethan, right? Because he could see through you and shut you down with his words, even when he was little. What? I knew you avoided Ethan as much as possible. You were running away from him, even though he was just a kid, because he was smart. My ex-husband blushed in embarrassment and clammed up. That's why I stayed by your side, and Ethan stayed with Mom. That way, you'd never dare lay a hand on her. I never realized that. He was visibly shocked. Murray spoke bluntly to him. Well, of course. What? You became more and more of a stranger, finding your place elsewhere. You were so oblivious. You didn't even see your own family, did you? Remembering that time doesn't hurt me anymore. But Mur's words started to blur my vision. Ethan gently touched my shoulder and continued, Dad, what about what we talked about earlier? The affair and having a child. You're not denying it, huh? Well, even if you denied it, it's the truth, and there's nothing you can do about it now. Why are you bringing this up? My ex-husband could only give a vague response to Ethan's unexpected turn in the conversation. Ethan pressed on. Did you know I was working a part-time job in high school? Part-time job? You didn't know, huh? Mur was working part-time too. What? Dad was never home, never put money into the household, just messing around. We both had to work part-time in high school to help Mom. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. As I said earlier, you never really saw us or Mom, so you didn't notice that Mur was fooling you. My ex-husband fell silent at Ethan's words, and I worked in the kitchen of a restaurant, you know? You used to come there a lot with a woman. What? Sometimes during the day, sometimes at night. You brought a little kid with you too, right? What? That's your love child, isn't it? What? You'd loudly say things like, this kid's going to grow up to be handsome like me and stuff. It was so embarrassing. No, nobody wants to be like you. Ethan snorted. He had no idea his son had seen him cheating and even seen his love child. My ex-husband started sweating and breathing shallowly while glancing at him. I casually asked, how are May and Ken doing? I threw out names he probably didn't expect me to know. And he gasped, how did you? How do you want to know? After we divorced, it might not have been a big deal for you, but I had to go through a lot of paperwork. It's impossible not to notice, especially since you acknowledged them. My ex-husband was silent again. I didn't feel disappointed anymore, but I wondered if he thought he could hide it by keeping quiet. Eventually, when he's gone, all sorts of issues will fall on the children due to inheritance. Regardless of the divorce, the children are still related to him by blood, and so is the child he acknowledged. He probably never thought that far as a parent. Well, I knew it, but it was still a shock. You never thought about me or the kids. My ex-husband remained silent. No matter what was said, was he really unable to say anything after all this, pinned under the gaze of the three of us? My ex-husband didn't even try to make excuses, maybe due to his useless pride. I knew it, but still, what was he thinking during all those years of marriage, of family life with us? He probably thought the onslaught was over. He let out a breath, relaxing his shoulders. but he wasn't let off so easily. And on top of that, you were begging that woman for money too, weren't you? Are you just terrible? Ethan said with disgust. What? What are you talking about? Not what are you talking about? You're even messing with the company's money now. Murr's unexpected words made him freeze as he stared at her. Don't say it's a lie. I didn't do that, really. Still playing dumb? You can't escape this. What are you talking about? Where's the proof? His red-faced shout echoed in the room. Ethan doused his fire with a cool reply. You left evidence everywhere, blatantly in the company's books. His face was drained of color. The financial audit of your company is being handled by my husband, Murr added. My ex-husband lost all expression, probably never imagining the man he thought he'd congratulate today as Murr's husband was the one exposing his embezzlement. I was shocked when I heard it too. Murr's husband, a certified public accountant, was involved in auditing my ex-husband's company. The chief accountant, who happened to know me's husband's firm manager, brought up recent suspicious financial activities leading to his involvement. The more he looked, the stranger it got. Did you really have to embezzle $1 million for your debts and secret child support? Murr's words hit him hard. He must have been overwhelmed with why and how could this happen. Ethan mercilessly delivered the final blow. You know, this is a crime. My ex-husband froze completely. His body trembled slightly as we watched him. Murr said, That's why I wanted to end it. What? I'm married now, connected to another family. I don't need a criminal in my family, and I wanted to reset everything I've been carrying all these years. That's why I asked Mom to prepare this room today. Why can't she arrange this room? This is a wedding venue, right? He turned his gaze towards me. I spoke without meeting his eyes. This place, it's my company. What? Your company? I started in this industry as a part-timer, and after gradually gaining experience, I was promoted. From there, I worked hard to learn and build connections. I entered this industry before we divorced, a little before he started ignoring me. He never knew or cared to know what company I worked for or what I did. He didn't even try to find out. So he never knew I've been in this industry since then. It was a terrible situation, but it led to good connections for me. And 2 years ago, I started this company with someone I've worked with for a long time. Who? Someone you've worked with, the president of the parent company, and now my husband. What? He was speechless. As expected, I guess. So he always thought he was above his ex-wife, who is now a president's wife and a subsidiary company president, shaking. He managed to ask us, me, is what Murr is saying true. What? When we divorced, you cut ties with her, right? That's right, isn't it? He shouted desperately, but cold words rained down on him. Isn't that obvious? Like I said earlier, I ignored Mom on the surface for 7 years just to protect her. It was only superficial. I never really ignored her. Besides, you were hardly ever home. What? You only saw what was on the surface, right? Whether I was ignoring Mom or not, well, that's... And when I graduated from college, you too got divorced. That's when I made my choice, right? To go with Mom. That's a lie, right? It's true. Someone like you, a cheating, abusive, embezzling jerk, just disgusts me. You have no idea how much those 7 years messed with my mental health. Murr's voice, which had been so strong, started to tremble, her eyes filling with tears. Murray, I'm so sorry. I couldn't help but hug her. It's okay. Mom was always there, silently protecting us from any harm, taking on everything, standing strong in place of a deadbeat dad who wouldn't contribute or even come home. Murr hugged me back, her arms trembling, sobs echoing against my back. Ethan gently rubbed our shoulders, saying, Anyway, Dad, you're busted. What? Actually, I'm involved in that audit too. What? I'm a certified public accountant now, working under Murr's husband. You mean you're with her husband's firm? Yep, so I know all about your dirty deeds. I've been looking back, and it's been going on for quite a while, hasn't it? It's more than just $1 million, right? What? Really? Well, what you spend it on isn't my concern. But the fact you used someone else's money doesn't change. My ex-husband fell silent at that. I pulled out my phone and quickly sent a message to my husband. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Several men approached my ex-husband in silence. As he responded, what must he be thinking? He hesitantly put out his handcuffed wrists. I averted my gaze. The soft click of the handcuffs echoed. Since then, my ex-husband has been cooperating with the police investigation. During this, they discovered he had been abusing the child he had with his mistress. Of course, he was rearrested, and the mistress too. The child, still in middle school, is now in a child protective facility. The police informed me. Hearing this, Ethan had an indescribable look on his face. Something wrong. Well, Mom might not like it, but I want to meet that kid. What? I knew Ethan often saw those three at his part-time job. I thought it might be a sentiment. But he said, if I had noticed something back then, maybe that kid wouldn't have been hurt. Ethan seemed to feel responsible for what had happened. Also, yeah, you may not like it, but he's technically my brother, right? Ethan said, looking away. Perhaps since that time 10 years ago, he had felt a vague sense of brotherhood towards the little boy. Indeed, he's all alone now. Yeah, honestly, I didn't feel great about it. That child was the result of betrayal, but he's alive and growing. I've made my kids go through unnecessary hardships. Part of that responsibility is undeniably mine. So let's do what I can now. Shall we go meet him sometime? Ethan's face lit up with a smile. How the boy would react or receive this, I don't know. But I want to see the smiles of the children around me as much as possible. I gently stroked Ethan's head. To move forward, I'll ask someone who knows. I took out my phone, opened my history, tapped the name of someone important, and listened to the